Big Pharma's corruption exposed the shocking truth about the unethical practices that put profit over people. Big Pharma's greed is wreaking havoc on the health of patients. The corruption and unethical practices that have infiltrated this sector have led to a widespread distrust of the pharmaceutical industry. The profit drive of some corporations has tainted the very purpose of medicine, to heal. One of the most blatant examples of this misconduct is the outrageous price gouging that deprives patients of life-saving medication. This injustice makes treatment inaccessible to many, eradicating any sense of justice or fairness in healthcare. Worse still, the pharmaceutical industry's hold on healthcare policymakers and doctors creates an overwhelming imbalance. The root cause of this nightmare is obvious. The industry puts profit before patients' well-being. It's high time for the industry to shift its focus and prioritize ethical approaches that look out for the welfare of the people they serve. Greater transparency and accountability are needed urgently to bridge the massive gap between patients and corporations. Big Pharma carries an immense level of responsibility to act ethically, and for the sake of their patients' health, it's imperative that they acknowledge the impact of their actions and embark on a path towards positive change. The pharmaceutical industry's ruthless prioritization of profits over patient well-being has reached reprehensible extremes. Heartbreaking examples of bribery, falsification of clinical data, and unscrupulous business practices have become more and more widespread in recent years. Driven by insatiable shareholder demands, the industry has veered far from its original mission to provide life-enhancing and restorative products. The result of this corporate greed is nothing short of disastrous. Patients are the ones who suffer the most. Drug prices have skyrocketed, making healthcare a luxury item that most can't afford. Patients are forced to choose between buying life-saving medication or putting food on the table. It's no surprise that this has led to a significant decrease in patient compliance, with many foregoing necessary medication altogether. As a result, people's health worsens, and illnesses that could have been treated with pharmaceuticals go unchecked. Meanwhile, the industry continues to indulge in corrupt business practices and take advantage of those who need medication most. The pharmaceutical industry has an enormous influence over doctors' prescribing practices, leaving physicians no choice but to work within a twisted system that prioritizes profit over patient care. Pharma companies offer financial incentives such as grants and speaking fees, making it virtually impossible for doctors to make unbiased decisions regarding patient care. How can we expect our doctors to deliver the best possible care when they're being bribed to do otherwise? We need change now. The industry must be held accountable for these unethical practices. Oversight, transparency, and regulations must be put in place to ensure that drugs are not only accessible, but also affordable. The pharmaceutical industry's priority should always be patient well-being, not investor profits. The industry has a responsibility to restore its original mission and embrace a more ethical and responsible approach to its operations. We must demand change from the pharmaceutical industry. With greater oversight, transparency, and accountability, we can move toward a medical system that prioritizes patient health above all else. It's time to put an end to this disgraceful era of greed and corruption and work toward a more equitable healthcare system that serves everyone, regardless of their economic status. The misconduct within Big Pharma has a significant impact on healthcare. One of the major issues is the price gouging of medication, which makes it difficult for patients to afford the treatment they need. This has led to a decrease in accessibility to required medications for a vast number of patients. Additionally, the influence of Big Pharma on medical professionals can be problematic. The pharmaceutical industry has been known to promote their medications even when they know they may not be the best treatment option for the patients. This often results in patients receiving medication that might not necessarily be the best option for their healthcare needs. Overall, the impact of misconduct in Big Pharma can have damaging consequences for patients and healthcare professionals alike. It is essential for the industry to prioritize patient welfare over profit and take steps towards increasing transparency and accountability. Big Pharma's greed is a far-reaching issue, impacting not only individual patients but the entire healthcare industry. The history of corruption within the industry stretches back decades, and the examples of unethical practices are numerous. From bribing doctors to dishonest clinical trials, the pharmaceutical industry has demonstrated time and time again that profit comes before patience. Perhaps the most startling aspect of the industry's misconduct is the price gouging that occurs in medications. Medicine is intended to heal, and patients are entitled to have access to life-saving drugs without having to worry about astronomical price tags. Yet, greed has driven up the costs, making necessary treatments out of reach for many who need them. This lack of access creates a massive imbalance in healthcare, where only those who can afford it get the care they need. Another aspect of Big Pharma's influence on healthcare is the way it impacts medical professionals. With drug companies having so much power, the fear is that doctors will prescribe or recommend expensive drugs, even if there are cheaper, equally effective alternatives. Other unethical practices, such as ghostwriting articles for healthcare publications and manipulating research, leave doctors and other healthcare professionals wondering who to trust. The cause of this sorry state of affairs is clear. The pharmaceutical industry has put profit before patients' well-being. This concerning pattern of behavior must stop immediately if the industry is to regain the trust of the people it serves. It's high time for the industry to shift its focus, prioritize ethics, and institute measures that look out for the welfare of the people it serves. Ironically, for an industry that relies so deeply on science, the concept of transparency and accountability often remains a mystery to those in charge. The industry needs an overhaul, with more measures needed to ensure greater transparency and ethical behavior. The change must come from within, and it's time for the industry leaders to be held accountable for their actions. Thus, it's high time that Big Pharma assumes the massive level of responsibility it's been handed, and that it starts acting ethically. In their pursuit of profit, the industry has lost sight of the very essence of medicine: to heal. To move towards positive change, the industry must acknowledge the impact of their actions and institute a relationship with the public founded on trust and respect. In conclusion, the pharmaceutical industry's behavior is shameful and unethical. Price gouging, lack of access, and influence peddling have created a bleak landscape for the public. A call to action is needed for transparency and accountability in Big Pharma. Change must start from within, and it's time that industry leaders adopt an ethical foundation on which to base their actions. The need of the hour is for more measures to be instituted to ensure greater transparency and ethical behavior. The change must start now to ensure that medicine remains the beneficiary of the patients it serves. The pharmaceutical industry is riddled with avarice and corruption, leaving patients in the dust as profits dictate their care. People worldwide struggle to afford life-saving medications, while medical professionals are forced to choose between their patients' health and corporate incentives. But there's hope on the horizon. By demanding greater transparency and regulation, we can create a culture that places patient well-being first. A shift in the industry is necessary, so we must act quickly to curb these unethical practices and ensure that every individual receives the care they need and deserve. Join us in our fight for change and a brighter, healthier future for all. Big Pharma is an industry juggernaut with a startlingly immense reach into people's health and well-being. For over a century, this highly profitable industry has wielded a malignant influence, marred by a murky history of corruption. The unsavory truth is that Big Pharma companies have committed egregious acts of fraud, bribery, and collusion in their pursuit of wealth and power. These nefarious activities have not only affected Americans, but have also stained global medical communities. One of the most alarming issues plaguing this industry is the exorbitant cost of life-saving medication. People who are stricken with life-threatening diseases are often left without hope as they struggle to pay for their needed medication. Big Pharma sets prices that hobble the majority of patients, even those who have medical coverage. It is utterly appalling that these drugs are priced out of the reach of most people, leading to profound health disparities and needless deaths. Another issue is the industry's overwhelming influence on healthcare policies and doctors, resulting in a biased lens towards certain medications that may not be the best fit for the patient, but generate large revenue for the company. The industry must prioritize the patient's welfare by presenting a transparent and ethical approach. Providing transparency on how medication is developed, research funding is spent, and product profits generate accountability that can promote consumer faith and confidence. The way forward for the industry is to provide greater transparency and accountability to patients. The pharmaceutical sector needs to prioritize funding to research and develop drugs that will benefit a larger population of patients. Investors must demand that the industry put their focus on patient welfare and not solely on profits. It is high time to provide answers to customers about the prices of their medication being charged and how much profit pharmaceutical companies make off the back of the patient's illnesses. Big Pharma's pervasive lack of ethics has caused widespread harm and distrust in the healthcare industry. The fundamental changes urgently required can rebuild that trust by putting the patient's welfare at the heart of its operation. Greater transparency and accountability will allow people to make informed decisions about their treatment and ultimately lead to a healthier and more equitable society. In conclusion, the pharmaceutical industry plays a crucial role in healthcare, but unethical practices such as price gouging and influence on medical professionals have caused significant harm. The profit over patient mentality is a root cause of this misconduct, and changes are needed to instill transparency and accountability. It is essential that the industry prioritize ethical behavior and prioritize patient welfare over financial gain. Therefore, it is imperative that companies in the pharmaceutical industry take responsibility and strive to make necessary changes to protect the health and well-being of society. It is time for all stakeholders to come together and create a new standard of conduct that upholds the highest ethical standards in the pharmaceutical industry.